A new documentary aims to shine a light on mandatory minimum sentencing. The sentence debuted at Sundance Film Festival in January. Filmmaker Rudy Valdez documents life after his sister, Cindy Shank, was sentenced to 15 years in prison. She served 8 years before being granted clemency.
The documentary will be in theaters this week and is also going to debut on HBO. Rudy Valdez and Cindy Shank join us now to tell us more about the film and the events leading up to it. We're so glad to have both of you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Cindy, talk to us about that moment when you are sentenced. What was that like? What were you facing in your life?
At the time, I had just actually given birth to Annalise. She was just 6 weeks old when I was taken away.
Wow.
Autumn was 4 and Ava was 2. And up until I was indicted, I was just working and a stay-at-home mom. And well, I was stay-at-home mom for a few years, and then I got a job, and then I was just being a wife and a mother and taking care of my family. And then I was indicted and taken away.
What was the basis of the indictment? What was the case about?
It was a drug-related case, a conspiracy. Just something that happened 6 years prior. I was in a relationship previously, and I was initially indicted in 2002, but my case was dismissed. So I moved on with my life. I got married, had kids, and then 6.5 years later.
Was the statute 10 years?
7.
Wow, you got
Just
indicted
under.
1 year under the statute of limitations.
Yes.
So how did you, Rudy, seek to help make sure that Cindy stayed connected with the kids? How did you respond to this event in your family's lives?
Yeah, I think the response on my end, I still don't understand how it all happened in my brain, but instinctively I started to just, I knew that I needed to fight. When I sat there and watched my sister get a 15-year prison sentence for a first-time nonviolent offense, it reminded me of, the rest of my life growing up, feeling like we didn't have a voice, feeling like we lived in a community that was underserved and underrepresented, and we had always waited for somebody to give us a voice or ask us how to help or how to do, get out of these things, and I knew that nobody was going to come and help.
No one was going to save you.
Yeah, so we needed to save ourselves, and we needed to be our own voice, and I decided that I was going to be that voice. I didn't know what that meant at the time, and this didn't start as a documentary. I wasn't even a filmmaker when I started making this film. I started just documenting the lives of Cindy's girls who were left behind, because at the time I didn't know how much time she was going to do, but I wanted her to be able to watch them live and grow and run and play. And so I just started filming birthday parties and everyday life and things like that, so that one day she could watch that when she came home. And it just sort of grew from there.
Cindy, were you able to watch that footage while you were in prison? No.
No, absolutely not. I was not able to. They don't allow any type of
How much contact were you able to have with your kids?
Initially, the first 3 years, I was getting visits pretty regularly. I would say 6 to 8 weeks, I'd get a visit. But the prison closed, and I was moved to Florida, and I was seeing them once a year at that point. It was very hard when I was moved so far away. It was already hard because I was already 8 hours away, and then to move, to Florida from Michigan was pretty devastating on my daughters and me, our relationship. And then I was there for 3 years, and I actually got moved to Kentucky, which was the closest. So I was very thankful for that time because they were only 5 hours away at that point. And so I was able to start seeing them a little bit more regularly, but phone calls and letters, and I did everything possible that I could to try and stay connected by, making them things or writing them letters or, calling them as much as possible.
So Rudy, beyond telling your sister's story, have you, as part of the film, looking into this at a policy level? You want to see, I assume, mandatory minimums changed, adjustments made to sentencing guidelines, and what were some of the research components you bring to bear for what you'd like to see happen?
Yeah, so definitely the goal of this now is to use this film as a tool to help guide people as they're making policy decisions on this subject. But in a way, my film is completely apolitical, in the sense that I don't go into the history of the war on drugs or what started these mandatory minimum sentences, because I didn't want to alienate anybody. I wanted this to be a story that could cross the aisle, and no matter where you sat, I want you to watch this human story about the true ramifications of these draconian sentences and who is really doing these sentences and why and who's benefiting. And by making it apolitical, I feel like I've made it even more political, because I'm not asking you to comment on it from the side of the aisle you're on. I'm asking you to comment and respond to it by how you're responding to it as a human, as a person. So
what has the response been?
It's been pretty remarkable. You know, people are surprised, but the first call that I received, or the first person that reached out after we premiered at Sundance on the political level, was a Republican senator. Senator Mike Lee reached out, I think a day or two after it premiered at Sundance, and said, you know, thank you for making this. We need to bring this to the Hill. We need to show this to people. This is a good example of why we need to change these sentencing guidelines.
Cindy, how have you been received?
Well, actually, I think people identify with our family, and you know, everybody kind of takes a piece of it with them, and I think was our hope, that people can see that, you know, things happen to people who make a wrong choice, but we're just like anyone else. I want you to see us in your family, and I think the film really does a good job of reflecting we're everyday people, and it could happen to anybody.
What gave you strength when you were incarcerated to stay as positive as you could and keep going?
The grace of God, honestly, just keeping strong and keeping in my faith, and knowing that I had 3 beautiful young girls that were waiting for me. I knew I was going to miss out on a lot of firsts, you know, first words, first days of school, first steps, but I had something to come home to. I'm going to get graduations and proms and weddings, and I have a life waiting for me, so I had to stay strong for them.
What was that like, that first day you were back home?
Very surreal, it was overwhelming with love. I knew I just had to get back to them. It was just filled a hole that was just empty in me for so long that, you know, only those 3 little girls could fill. So,
amazing story. Rudy and Cindy, thank you both so much for being here to share it with us. We really appreciate it. And folks can watch the film on HBO, in theaters. I think it'll have a profound impact on people. Thank you so much for making it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
We'll have more Rising after this.